What happens to good people when they allow themselves to be disarmed by a handful of tyrants and a gaggle of weak but power-hungry political activists? Well, they become subjects and are then told what to do. So when other countries took guns away from their citizens, they not only took away their self-defense, but they also took away their self-esteem and pride, because tyrants know that if they can weaken a man, they can dominate him. This may be why the Democrats in America have implemented the toxic male campaign and have celebrated the weak, emasculated beta male in society. They not only normalized something that would have been laughed at just a few decades ago, but marketed it in such a way that it made it appear to be popular. The shaming of masculinity in America has been very clear by the political left, and unfortunately, some of the weaker among us have fallen for it. The truth is, real men do need guns if they want to protect the ones they love from danger and the country they love from tyranny. What is the best way to keep citizens from rising up against tyrannical government? Well, keep them in fear, keep them weak, and keep them unarmed and helpless. Gun laws in America are not about saving lives, as the political left would like you to believe. Gun laws in America are for the purpose of Democrats disarming their political opposition. Weak men are controlled men, and a disarmed citizenry becomes subjects of the state. So our founding fathers knew that there would be people who would try to put America back under the control of a monarchy. That's why they wrote the Second Amendment. For more Second Amendment content, check out my Good Gun, Bad Guy book series at goodgunbadguy.com. And we're going to talk about this and many other things with... He's not controversial. He just says things others disagree with. John Chiara. The hatred and rage on the political left are a result of left-wing propaganda and brainwashing. Don't believe me? Look at the tactics Hitler used on the Nazis that pushed them to the point of deciding that the best thing was to eradicate Jews from the world. But those ideas and beliefs don't just happen. Left-wing media sets the table by creating the idea that their political opposition is evil. They know that if they push the idea that Republicans and conservatives are oppressors, white supremacists, racist, threats to democracy, and fascists, some people will start to believe it and act on it. Now, many on the left believe a person should die if they've been convinced that the person's beliefs are a threat. But the right, because we still allow God in our hearts and in our lives, we see humanity with compassion, understanding that even though we may disagree, we still believe their life is valuable. So how is it that someone like Charlie KIRK can engage in political discourse and often disagree with people, but still have compassion for his opponent, while others can laugh and celebrate his death? Well, the difference might lie in the way we view those who we believe to be our opponents, whether racial, political, religious, or even competitive opposition. Is it possible that some people have been conditioned to lose compassion for others? In other words, I may not like you, but I would protect you if it came down to it. While some, like many on the left, want harm to come to you because the beliefs they have about you might not be aligned with what they believe. So because the way they have been lied to and misled, they're willing to watch you die. And vengeance and your suffering makes some of them feel good. The difference may be in our moral checks and balances, the part of the brain that reminds us to have compassion or empathy for others. But ironically, it seems the only people they have compassion for are the killers and criminals. They lost something that's critical to living in a civilized society, which is why many are calling for them to be removed from society, not only because they have a mental illness and should be getting help, but also because they've become dangerous to everyone around them. Now, many on the left, those who cheer the death of a good man, may have lost part of their soul. And this is not limited to those who speak their hatred publicly. It includes those who believe it quietly as well. They lost the ability to value humanity. Now, this isn't a movie where you cheer when the bad guy dies. This is real life. But some can't seem to make that distinction. So is this a result of brainwashing? Have they cultivated a dysfunctional belief structure within them? Or have they been consumed by evil? Well, we're not sure yet, but it's clear that it's not safe. And if they live among us, many have decided to denounce the radical left for watching their heartless comments and after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Many have finally said enough is enough and will not share space with them. Does this mean liberals and leftists will start to be shut out of society? Will they become pariahs? Do we resort to all-out aggression towards each other, or is there a way the hatred in the hearts of the political left can be changed without subjecting them to vengeance or completely shutting them out of American society? Well, the irony is they're becoming even more angry at those who are now calling them out, when they should be angry at those who indoctrinated them in the first place with hatred and now are abandoning them. People like Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Rachel Maddow, Chuck Schumer. So just like the hatred was built, the same strategies and tactics could be used to put the radical leftists back together and help them find their humanity once again. In other words, undo the brainwashing that's been done to them. This will only happen if the source of the brainwashing changes course and fixes the people they've taken advantage of in their fight for political dominance. So it's time to call out the media outlets and political leaders on the left who have cultivated this heinous behavior and hatred in their supporters. In the meantime, and for the safety of all good people, what can we do to keep ourselves safe from the evil that runs through the hearts of the radical left? Well, exercising our Second Amendment rights and making sure we and our families are always well protected. That's a good start. Just like our founding fathers encouraged the creation of militias to preserve American freedom and our values, the political left has created an evil militia of radicalized anti-Americans for the purpose of destroying those values. Our founders had the insight to know that these people would come along one day. And, well, they're here. All right, let's be clear. The Second Amendment doesn't say the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed unless the government says otherwise. It doesn't carve out exceptions for background checks, waiting periods, or fees. The right to keep and bear arms is exactly that. It's a right. It's not a privilege. It's not a maybe. It's not a we'll see. Yet here we are, so conditioned to government overreach that we jump through hoops just to exercise something that was never the government's to regulate in the first place. So we've allowed politicians and bureaucrats, many who have never even held a gun, to place a chokehold on our Second Amendment rights. From red flag laws to magazine capacity restrictions, gun-free zones, and mandatory background checks, the list of infringements just keeps growing. And somehow we've accepted this. We've let them turn a God-given right into a permission slip. Isn't government overreach and slimy bureaucrats the reason the Second Amendment was written in the first place? Now they regulate it? Take Hawaii, for instance. There's a state who says we recognize the Second Amendment, we just don't allow it in our state. They say the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed except for every privately owned public space in the state. Well, the Second Amendment wasn't written for deer hunters. Our founding fathers drafted it to ensure that we, the people, had the means to keep tyrannical government in check. That's right, to override the government if necessary. So how is it that today we let the very institution the Second Amendment was meant to restrain decide how much of it we're allowed to keep? It doesn't happen all at once. It was one small restriction after another. A background check here, a magazine capacity restriction there, common sense gun laws, they told us. And we gun owners, patriots, citizens, too often just sort of went along with it. Now we're living in a culture where these infringements have become normal, or at least expected. Now that's the real danger. We're no longer throwing the tyrants in jail. We're debating with them about how much of our rights we have to give up. Imagine James Madison walking into a modern gun shop. He watches an American citizen fill out forms, hand over ID, and wait for government approval to buy a firearm. What do you think he'd say? Well, he'd be embarrassed that we squandered such an important component of our freedom. In some states, like New York, we even need permission to buy ammunition. We obediently wait days or even months to find out if we're allowed to take home a firearm. In too many cases, that delay becomes a death sentence. The media, the political left, Even some on the right have pushed a narrative that runs completely counter to the intent of our founders. They've rewritten the cultural script to convince us that begging for permission is normal. But let's be honest. Every time we walk into a gun shop and let a camera record us as we register our purchase with the government, we're participating in the slow dismantling of our rights. A right is not a privilege. It's inherent, God-given. It's not something handed out by government. It's something the government is supposed to protect. But we've allowed that right to be eroded. And let's not pretend we're blameless. Too many gun owners have stood by silent, hoping someone else would do the hard work of defending our liberty. So how did it come to this? Well, simple. We got complacent. We let the anti-gun crowd twist tragedies into opportunities to strip rights from law-abiding citizens. We let them rewrite the script while we stayed quiet, hoping it wouldn't get worse. Well, it has. And it will continue until we wake up and fight back. We don't have the luxury of silence anymore. I don't want to be the generation that stood by while the Constitution was gutted and the government grabbed all the power. Good news is we still have a chance. Right now, today, we can push back. We must push back. Every gun law on the books, every single one is an infringement. It's time to stop compromising. And the truth is, the Second Amendment means exactly what it says. No fine print, no exceptions, no permission needed, and no infringements. So ask yourself, what would our founding fathers say? And more importantly, what would our grandchildren say if we don't act now? Every vampire tale worth its salt contains one immutable law. A vampire cannot enter a home unless invited. It's a peculiar rule, isn't it? A creature powerful enough to hypnotize minds and tear through flesh brought to a full stop by a locked front door, unless someone inside says yes. This is the vampire rule. Now, it may sound like harmless superstition, a gothic flourish in old legends, but beneath it lies a grim, unnerving truth. Evil, no matter how monstrous, often needs permission to cross the threshold. In stories, the rule protects the sanctity of the home. Your space is your fortress unless you break the seal with a word or gesture, often innocently. A lonely child waves to the pale man outside. A party host throws open their door to a charming stranger. A tired soul, desperate for help, says, "Come in." And just like that, the monster is among them. The vampire rule has survived for centuries because it reveals something we would rather not face. Most horrors don't arrive uninvited. And once inside, the vampire feeds. In folklore, once you've allowed a vampire into your home, they can return anytime. They don't need to ask again. The first consent becomes a curse. This Halloween, when the nights stretch long and shadows stretch longer, remember the vampire rule. It's more than myth. It's a metaphor. It warns us to be cautious with our trust, our attention, our allegiance. Not all who knock have good intentions. Not all who smile mean well. So guard your doors, literal and figurative. Question who you allow into your life, your mind, your values. Evil rarely barges in. It waits for you to offer it a drink and pull out a chair. The next time someone knocks with a perfect grin and cold eyes, ask yourself, are they really asking for shelter, or are they waiting for the words that let them feast? Never forget the rule. Vampires must be invited in. Don't be the one who opens the door. That's the vampire rule. Now, it's scary to think that something so heinous could enter your home, or worse, you actually invited it. But politicians in Hawaii and other states have turned firearms into the vampire and have decided that our right to keep and bear arms is not guaranteed, but must be specifically invited into privately owned business. They've created a rule that turns the one true life-saving device into a hideous blood-sucking villain. The truth is, guns are used to protect loved ones and save lives far more often than they're used to commit illegal acts. But the gun grabbers in Hawaii have turned them into vampires by banning them from privately owned businesses, unless they're welcomed in with a sign saying guns are allowed. Why do gun grabbers keep pushing for national registries and red flag laws? It's not about safety. It's about disarming you. One law, one database, one accusation at a time. This didn't start yesterday. Back in 1934, Franklin D. Roosevelt used the violence of the gangster era to pass the National Firearms Act, or otherwise known as the NFA, forcing citizens to register and pay taxes on certain guns. Well, that law wasn't about crime control. It was so the government would know who owned what. Nearly a century later, the same mindset drives every new so-called common sense gun law. New York has become the testing ground. Governor Kathy Hochul moved firearm background checks from the federal NICS system to the state police, and then added background checks for ammunition. Every box of ammo you buy now has your name and address attached. So the state police know exactly what you own and where you live, because a state-run background check system no longer has the protection of anonymity that the federal system is supposed to have. So Hochul also mandated that police must confiscate firearms during any domestic violence call with no discretion and no due process. So combine that with red flag laws, and the state can seize your guns anytime they want. So make no mistake, nobody wants to be around maniacs with guns, but putting law-abiding citizens at risk of losing their rights is not an option, especially while courts are letting the maniacs and criminals out of jail. Deal with the bad guys and leave our gun rights alone. As of February 2025, New York courts had issued about 14,000 red flag orders. That's 14,000 citizens stripped of their rights, many without ever committing a crime. Now, this is no accident. Registries identify the guns. Red flag laws provide the vehicle for confiscation. Make no mistake, that is the end game. But there's one more devious component implemented by the gun grabbers to facilitate firearm confiscation. So we're going to talk about this and many other things with, he's not controversial online. He just says things that make people mad. John Chiara. And some people say he's mean, but we like to consider him pleasantly angry. Anthony Diso. And here to break down the legal aspects of these Constitution-violating gun laws, I'd also like to welcome our very special guest, attorney and Washington gun law president, William KIRK.
Thank you.
All right. So Bill, thanks so much for being here on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a real honor. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. We've been talking recently. You and I just did your show recently.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great conversation.
No, it was great, man. It's gotten good reviews. So thanks for hopping on with us. It was a good time.
Yeah. No problem. They, the people seem to like it, and we got into some of the deeper stuff. But today
we did. Yeah.
Today we wanted to talk about some of these legal aspects. There's one more aspect, Bill, and I want you to open this whole thing up. And I know there's a case that, how do you say it?
Alliage,
the Alliage case. And we talked about the red flag laws. We talked about the registry, and we're also talking about what else? There's another component.
Permit to purchase, permit to possess, which is the easiest way to get disarmed.
Well, and that's exactly what happened in this Alliage case.
Yeah.
Right. And this is a complicated case. So would you be able to kind of break it down?
Yeah, I can break it down for you. Yeah, this is a case that was brought to my attention by the folks over at the New Jersey Firearm Owners Syndicate, and then the Second Amendment Foundation has since hopped into it. The case is called Alliage versus Fort Lee Police Department. What this involves is Mr. Alliage is an Albanian immigrant, an American citizen, 38 years old, lawful, responsible gun owner, owns multiple firearms. Everyone under New Jersey's crazy laws is still able to lawfully own firearms. His wife has recently moved to the United States and did not speak a lick of English, no English whatsoever. And she's only been listed in the complaint as L.A., just by her initials. She was suffering from serious bouts of morning sickness, waking up every morning really, really sick. I wonder what could cause that. And so at some point, she went to an urgent care walk-in medical clinic. And with no ability to speak English, was trying to tell the medical staff what was going on with her. And at one point made a statement, something to the effect of, she felt so bad, she felt like she wanted to die. The medical staff, under New Jersey's duty to report law, immediately reported that to law enforcement and to some mental health hospitals. And LA was involuntarily committed that afternoon. That was on April 17th of 2025.
And let me ask you, was that because she said she wanted to die?
That's because she said she was feeling so bad that she felt like she wanted to die. Now, the ultimate diagnosis on LA is that she was going through an adjustment disorder. Of course, just having moved from Albania and not speaking a lick of English could probably explain that. The morning sickness was caused by this phenomena called pregnancy.
We've heard of it.
Yeah. So she was 7 weeks pregnant. There was no medical findings at all that she was suicidal, homicidal, posed a threat to herself or any other person. Those were all in the findings. But by the time she was discharged from the mental health institution, Mr. Aliaj's firearms had already been confiscated by the Fort Lee Police Department.
Now, this gets more complicated, though, because there was no law allowing them to do that. As a matter of fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was policy or law, whatever you want to call it, in place to actually prevent that.
Yeah, so actually under New Jersey annotated statute 2A-62A-16.1.E, there is a law that says, hey, listen, if your firearms have been confiscated under some kind of a red flag provision due to the behavior of somebody else, then you can make a request in writing to the prosecuting attorney's office to return your firearms, so long as you can demonstrate that the prohibited person does not have access to firearms. Well, in Mr. Aliaj's case, he had a safe. He was the only one that had a combination. The wife had zero interest in any of the firearms, had no knowledge of how to use any of them. So he made that request in writing to the to the Bergen County prosecuting attorney's office. So that's the prosecuting attorney that's handling this at this point. And they basically told him to go pound sand.
That's unbelievable. That is so infuriating.
That the statute, and again, this is where lawyers, we geek out on, because we think that words have meanings. And the statute says that the firearms shall be immediately returned.
Yeah.
So long as they make the request and then show that the person has no access to the firearms. Shall be immediately returned really is not subject to a lot of interpretations.
No, and
I think it's very clear.
Yeah, and it shall not be infringed. And then we also have shall issue. I mean, shall is used very specifically to indicate that there's no wiggle room here, right?
There's no wiggle room. Shall is the most dominant word in American law. Shall means you're going to do it every single time without exception, full stop.
Yeah. New York and California used to be the shining beacons of the American dream. You came to New York and California to make it. But lately, it feels like both coasts are sinking under the weight of bad policies and selfish leadership. Let's start with the basics. Safety. In New York, you got some of the strictest gun laws in the nation. Ordinary law-abiding citizens jump through hoops and mountains of paperwork, background checks, and fees just for the right to maybe protect themselves. Meanwhile, criminals on the street couldn't care less about those laws, and Democrat leaders are actually letting the bad guys out of jail. The same story repeats in California unless you're Kamala Harris. California governor and LA mayor are tripping over themselves to make sure Kamala has taxpayer-funded armed security detail. Honest citizens are told to trust slick politicians who refuse to keep repeat offenders off the streets. It's the law-abiding who pay the price for the failures of leadership. And speaking of leadership, let's talk about taxes and the cost of living. It seems like the answer to everything by politicians is to raise taxes, grow government, and regulate more. But look around, it's driving people out. Families, small businesses, and are the very backbone of these states. And they're packing up and they're heading to Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and anywhere they can where they can afford life. Well, then there's homelessness. San Francisco, Los Angeles, Manhattan, some of the wealthiest zip codes in the country, and yet you can't walk a few blocks without stepping over homeless people. For decades, politicians have been taking billions of dollars from taxpayers to fix this problem and still no real results. Actually, there have been results. The politicians have amassed quite healthy stock portfolios in recent years. But here's the thing. And it's what keeps my faith in these great states alive. The people haven't given up. In both New York and California, there's still millions of hardworking, patriotic Americans who love their home, who believe in freedom, and who know that change is possible. And people are tired of watching their communities crumble while their leaders virtue signal from marble offices. There's a quiet revolution brewing and a movement of citizens who want to take back their streets, their schools, their rights, and their dignity. People are sick of the modern day politics and the twisted dreams of, bringing communism and radical Islam to the country that our founders fought so hard to create. But no matter how bad the policies get, the American spirit doesn't break that easily. Not in the Empire State and not in the Golden State. It's been proven that guns are used millions of times every year in America to save lives, but states like New York, Connecticut, and California, just to name a few, have decided that when you cross the border into their state, they want you unarmed, defenseless, and helpless against anything that might occur in their state. They don't care that you may have a concealed carry permit from another state. They think they can subvert the Second Amendment. But the last I checked, self-defense isn't something that stops at the state line. Oh, sure, they want you to visit and spend your money, of course, but they don't want you to enter their state empowered. They don't want you to be able to defend yourself. According to studies, defensive gun uses occur up to 2.5 million times per year in America. This means good people are stopping acts of violence because they, the potential victims, are armed. FBI studies show us that there are approximately 1.2 million violent acts reported every year in America. So this tells us that 2/3 of the potentially violent acts are stopped by armed citizens. So why would blue states want to tip the scales in favor of the bad guys? Well, the answer could be as simple as Democrats needing to make a political point, or as heinous as them protecting the criminals they harbor. Now, President Trump is wise to the fact that several states in the nation do not accept the handgun licenses of other states, which is why he publicly called on Congress to pass H.R. 38, otherwise known as the Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act. Your driver's license is accepted in all 50 states. Why is your Second Amendment right shut down at the state border? Well, H.R. 38 is a bill that would ensure your concealed carry permit is recognized in every state that allows concealed carry. This is a reasonable solution that respects the rights of lawful gun owners and promotes public safety. Why would blue state legislatures be against such common sense safety measures? As violence erupts across the country by radical left-wing anarchists, foreign terrorists, and gang violence, it's critically important that law-abiding citizens with concealed carry permits are able to exercise their right to self-defense anywhere in the country and not run the risk of becoming an accidental criminal simply because they exercise their Second Amendment right in a state that refuses to abide by the Constitution. So the ultimate goal, of course, is getting constitutional carry, and just like our founding fathers would have expected, which means you wouldn't need a government-issued permission slip to exercise your right to carry in any state. No American should lose a constitutional right simply by crossing a border within the United States. Why are anti-gun politicians so determined to create a national gun registry and expand red flag laws? It's not about safety. It's about control. There is a plan, and it's been unfolding for nearly a century. The roots of this effort trace back to 1934 when President Franklin D. Roosevelt capitalized on the violence of the Prohibition era to push through the National Firearms Act, otherwise known as the NFA. Until then, gun laws were largely left to the states, but Roosevelt's so-called New Deal for crime introduced one of the first federal gun control laws, complete with taxation and registration. He justified it by pointing the blame at gangsters and targeting machine guns, short-barreled rifles, silencers, and even grenades. The price tag was steep at the time, $200 per registered item. It wasn't about crime control then, and it isn't about safety now. The NFA was the first domino in a long line of federal and state efforts to build lists of lawful gun owners in the hopes of ultimately disarming them. Modern-day gun control advocates have simply expanded on that same playbook. Today, they hide behind buzzwords like universal background checks and extreme risk protection orders, but the goal hasn't changed. Registration followed by confiscation. Now, in places like the UK, as the Muslim population starts to dominate and the British people have been all but disarmed, good luck in retaining your culture. They didn't want the people to have guns back in the 18th century, and the smart ones broke away. They tried to force control, but those who wanted freedom grabbed their guns and stood their ground. America was born. Now it seems the UK is about to be taken over by a dangerous and radical ideology. Islam and Sharia law seem to be welcomed by leftists as they quickly lose everything out of their twisted need to be politically correct. Now would be a good time to have guns like we do here in America, but you threw that away. Good luck.
I don't know.
Everybody's heard my story. I mean, that's okay. So, John, you want to hear my story, John?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us.
So it was my wife and I. My wife and I were coming out of a late night movie theater in Albany, New York, Crossgates Mall, and we just had a run in with this guy, and I was unarmed because I wasn't carrying a gun at the time, and it's just one of those things. Where, we got out of the situation unharmed, but it was enough to tell me, hey, stupid, what are you doing? You should be able to protect yourself and your wife. And so I told my wife that night, I said, I'm getting a gun. Because it just makes so much common sense. Why in the world would you be walking around unarmed, especially in places that are more dangerous than others? Just doesn't make any sense to me. So it makes perfect sense now to carry a gun and not let that stuff happen. There's a new study out by John Lott at the Crime Prevention Research Center. It reveals something that the gun grabbers don't want you to know. First, let's start with the basics. In 2024, the FBI reported that there are approximately 1.2 million violent attacks reported every year in America. Now, studies have shown us that there are up to 2.5 million defensive gun uses every year in America. This means good people with firearms are stopping attackers approximately 2/3 of the time. Well, as it turns out, through analysis in this new study by Mr. Lott, civilians are stopping more of these attacks than the police. The gun grabbers are in shock over this, not only because it goes against everything they've been taught to believe. Guns are dangerous and guns cause people to be violent. And if you have a gun, you're more likely to accidentally shoot someone. All that nonsense and more. The anti-gun crowd has been programmed to believe this stuff. But what it tells us is that all along, regardless of the propaganda served up by the left-wing media, it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. And when that good guy is you, the average American citizen, the anti-gun crowd starts to squirm. They hate the fact that you might be in control of your own life and you might eliminate the criminals that they're protecting. So according to Mr. Lott, armed citizens cover a much broader ground geographically and by numbers than law enforcement officers, which means the average concealed carrier is much more likely to be at or near the scene of a violent attack and be able to respond quicker, likely saving more lives. And this is to take nothing away from law enforcement. It's just physically impossible for them to be on the scene quick enough to prevent attacks from happening. Now, the research shows that active shooting incidents were stopped by armed citizens approximately 20% more than police. The research also shows that out of 199 cases where armed citizens stopped active shooting attacks, 2 armed citizens were killed, resulting in a probability rate of 0.010%, while out of 167 cases where police stopped active shooting attacks, 27 police were killed, resulting in a probability rate of 0.162. So, of course, the gun control advocates and left-wing media aren't happy with these results and have tried to debunk this latest report because they don't want you to know that you're much safer when you carry a gun. It really does seem that the anti-gun crowd wants you to remain in perpetual state of unarmed helplessness. When we talk to gun owners and we ask them why gun ownership is so important, the answer is always attached to good intent. In other words, many gun owners will say something like, I want a gun so I can protect my life and defend the lives of the people I love. Often gun owners will tout statistics like those from defensive gun use studies and proudly declare that guns are used millions of times every year to stop acts of violence. Gun owners typically speak this way about gun ownership because they truly believe that guns are good. When our intentions are noble and moral, we tend to believe others are the same. So why is it that when we ask an anti-gunner about guns, we typically get a completely different type of answer? They'll often say guns should be banned because they're used for killing people. They'll say things like, the only reason someone needs an AR-15 is for killing a lot of people at once, or anyone who carries a gun in public is just looking for the chance to shoot someone. So what's the difference between the gun owner's perspective and the left-wing anti-gunner? The gun owner or pro-gun advocate sees firearms as a tool to save lives. The anti-gunner sees firearms as a tool to take lives. Therefore, the anti-gunner doesn't want you, or anyone else for that matter, to have a firearm. They're projecting onto others. Pro-gun advocates do the same thing. Yes, we project as well, but the difference is that the pro-gun advocate will see a handgun on the hip of a fellow gun owner and will assume that they're in good company and likely much safer by simply being around that fellow gun owner. One person sees guns as a tool to save lives and the other sees them as a tool to take lives. It's all a reflection of what's going on in the mind of the observer. How the anti-gunner comes to believe the things they do stems from a long history of anti-gun propaganda and media conditioning implemented upon them for the purpose of getting them to support gun control legislation. So here's the dirty little secret the anti-gun crowd doesn't want you to know. The anti-gunner doesn't trust you with a gun because they don't trust themselves with a gun. And it's no surprise as to why. They've been indoctrinated. They've been conditioned over a long period of time to see guns as dangerous, scary devices owned strictly for the purpose of taking lives. We're rolling. All right, we're back. We're back. All right, so during the break,
Anthony was feeling a kinship.
The studio started to erupt. The studio started to erupt in an anger toward Jelly Roll, and I don't even know what's going on, so I'm just going to leave it to Charlie because he's fired up about this.
I am so fired up. So I have, God bless Jelly Roll for the way he's turned his life around. Got it. Great. He was a drug dealer. He went to prison for a long time. He's got all those 96 prison tats that he's got there. Big as a house, right? Big as a house.
Whoa.
No,
Pump the brakes, buddy.
Hey,
Pump the brakes.
If he was on the couch,
the casting couch over here,
if he was on the couch with us,
to my physique.
They wouldn't need plywood underneath this. They'd need 2x4s.
There's plywood. Yes, they had to put
2x4s for Jelly Roll.
All right,
so
anyhow.
my deal with Jelly Roll is this: I don't really care for his music. God bless him. He became successful and famous and rich and all this stuff. This week he got in. Oh, so there's two things. Oh,
there's
multiple
things.
You want to talk about Jelly Roll for another reason? I got another reason. So, Jelly Roll, he can't. Now we can get into the gun stuff. He can't possess guns, and he got his license. Right. That's not what I'm talking about. I am livid that Jelly Roll was inducted into the Grand Ole Opry recently.
He's only been around for a year.
That's what I'm saying. Charlie Daniels started gigging in the 1950s. He didn't get inducted, I think, until 2007. He spent 50 years on the road, writing tunes, getting awards, played for presidents, been on Air Force One, the whole thing. Charlie Daniels influenced everybody forever. He played with Bob Dylan on the Nashville Skyline stuff. He's Charlie fucking Daniels. And it took him 50 years to get into the Grand Ole Opry.
It took Pork Roll 1 year.
Pork Roll.
Wow.
In this case,
I'll be
like
the Rock and Roll Hall
with
of Fame.
You calling him Taylor Ham.
It's
Rock and Roll Hall. Listen, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a joke. It's a joke.
Well, it is.
That's a joke.
It is. And Ted Nugent's not inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's influenced everybody too.
But the White Stripes are.
The White Stripes.
Well, they held off for decades to put Kiss in there. They hated
Kiss.
They
hated
Kiss.
There you got to bring up the Kiss. Always got to bring Kiss up.
No, but there's a story. Charlie,
dudes
talk
would
about
make a bond.
the Kiss move. The Kiss move.
So,
I'm not asking you to do a Kiss move on me. I'm saying the Kiss move.
Do it.
So I absolutely love. I don't know if you guys have seen this video, but there's video of them. I think it was 1996 when they got the old guys back together. They put the costumes on. I absolutely love this. They went to I think it was the Grammys. They went to the Grammys. They weren't invited. They weren't announced. They
Wasn't
weren't
it
anything.
Tupac who introduced him?
Tupac introduced him. And what it was Kiss just came in the back door and walked in as if they owned the place.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to introduce him. So Tupac's like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I've seen everything. This is unbelievable. Yeah. And I love it when Gene comes out because you can tell the aura that he's given. He's like, this is what it's all about. Yeah. This is rock and roll.
Yeah. Well, they should have been inducted into the Hall of Fame years ago. But I guess it's I don't know who runs that thing, but it's not by the people.
Oh, of course.
And so they Paul Stanley always said they feel like they're being indicted actually, but they're doing it for the fans. They didn't want to do it anyway at that point anyway. So it was almost at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at that point. They had to induct them, or they would start to look foolish.
Oh, totally.
I mean, what bigger rock band do you have than Kiss?
None. And this is what I love too about Kiss, right? Is every time, it doesn't matter what concert you go to, there's fire, there's loud music, there's pyro, there's everything. You go to Metallica, you go to anybody, you go to concerts, country shows, you go to rap shows. It's all the same. Everyone's got this, and no one was doing this before Kiss.
Yeah.
I know. Other than that, I have no strong feelings.
But hey.
So back to Jelly Roll, Charlie.
Oh, what happened with Jelly Roll? So I don't even know.
Here we go.
Why is Charlie so pissed off at Jelly Roll?
So here, I'm just pissed off because he got into the Grand Ole Opry. The other stuff I think is probably a good thing, right? So Jelly, if you're watching the show, I certainly don't mean any offense, but
Jelly. Did he just call him Jelly?
Well, all right, Mr. Roll.
Mr. Roll.
Mr. Roll.
I apologize.
Roll.
Mr. Roll.
So he lost his gun rights because he's a felon, because he was a drug dealer and a drug addict for decades. But he now, part of getting back into a better way of life is he's been eating better, he's been losing weight, and these are all great things. I'm not taking that from him at all. But he started, Joe Rogan's got him into archery. And so he wants to, he's got into bow hunting, and he wants to get into hunting with a rifle. And I think this week, the governor of Tennessee, Bill Lee, what's the right word for it, John?
He's got the full clemency pardon, whatever.
Clemency. Yeah. So he can, he can now get a gun license.
But the thing is, didn't he actually do like really, really bad things?
Well, you're not collecting for the Red Cross when they send you to jail.
I'm just saying, when you look at the burden of who should and shouldn't have their rights returned, and I've got a bright line on this. If you've been, paid your debt to society, you're out of prison, you should be fully patriated with all of your rights.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's very few people that shouldn't, right? I think the list of people who shouldn't is much smaller, right? So,
well, if you're not in prison, if you're safe enough for the court system, the legal system to have you out in public, then you should be able to have all your rights. I mean, what are they afraid of? Problem is, they're letting criminals back out into the streets.
There needs to be a better mechanism, at least, for that repatriation. So, but if you look at the stuff that Jelly Roll's done, like, I don't think he was a choir boy, obviously. So there's so many other people that have gotten hung up in these, like, let's say, white collar crimes and everything. We have a Supreme Court case, don't we? Aren't they eventually going to be looking at this nonviolent felon scenario with gun rights? Like, they're going to have to look at that. These are active cases right now that are going on. People that wrote bad checks, this, that, the other thing. So they get to struggle to try to get their rights back. They've been leading good lives. But Mr. Roll, who's just famous, is now able to get that full pardon and clemency and whatever. And that's kind of where I have an issue, because there's so many other people that should just have their rights returned to them by an edict.
Right. And if these people aren't safe enough to be, if they're safe enough to be in society, then let them have their rights back. If they're not, then let's keep them locked up.
So let's just hope Jelly Roll doesn't go out and do anything stupid now that he's pardoned.
Or listen to the show, because she's going to come after Charlie.
Yeah. Great.
Freedom of speech. Don't worry about that.
My last name is Petrolino.
Oh, get out of here. It's Taylor Ham. He's not pork roll.
It's PORK-ROLL. Pork roll.
He's
talking about
put
Mr.
an E
Pork
on
Roll.
the end.
All right. Let me get to one of our sponsors real quick here. The Kali Key. Now, this device, the Kali Key, removes your AR from the definition of so-called assault weapon. Did you know that when so-called assault weapon ban lists are created, they exclude manually operated bolt-action firearms? So just by dropping the Kali Key into your direct impingement AR in place of your semi-automatic BCG, you'll have a bolt-action rifle. Falls outside of the definition of an assault weapon. You don't need to do anything else. So give the Kali Key a look, because with it, you could retain all your rifle's features, avoid registration complications, revive your black rifle sales as an FFL, regain the ability to do private party transfers, legally transport across hostile jurisdictions, hunt with your AR in areas like Pennsylvania, and enhance long-range precision and quieter suppressed shooting. Kali Key has state-specific expert attorney opinions on its website and supports grassroots Second Amendment organizations with its sales. Kali Key's mission is to empower customers and claw back our civil liberties. So go to KaliKey.com and use the discount code LOADED. All right. So are we off Jelly Roll?
Yes.
I've
calmed down. Everything will be cool.
Like a 20-minute rant.
Has Charlie settled down?
There's so many beeps in there. He's not even going to understand what he was saying. That's a beep. That's a beep. That's a beep, beep, beep.
We should mention Charlie and I are going to SHOT Show this year, 2026 SHOT Show. It's at the Venetian Expo, Caesars Forum in Las Vegas. We will be there. The rest of these bums aren't going.
Are you bringing the wife?
No.
So you're going to ride on a plane by yourself? Are you going to be scared?
Is that a projection? Would you be?
Would I be? I would.
That's why these guys aren't going.
I'm scared.
Just piles in the aisles.
Piles in the aisle.
Go ahead. Tell the pile. Who had the pile in the aisle story? Go ahead. Last time we went to SHOT Show, the pile in the aisle.
They got up to get off the plane, and the old guy was trying to push his way through.
Oh, she was the stewardess was saying, "Sit down." Right?
Sit down. And
he was like, if you want to pile in the aisle, you're going to let me go in the bathroom. I would have loved to see him drop trow and take a dump in the aisle, but
that would have been good.
I mean,
Yeah, that would have been, yeah.
But SHOT Show, just so everybody knows, anybody watching the show would probably already know, it's the biggest national firearm and gun rights expo, right? How would you describe it?
It's everything. It's not just guns and ammunition and shooting. It's hunting and outdoors. So if you're if you have boats, if you have motors for boats, if you're fishing stuff, if you have what else? Anything that's revolved around hunting, if you have camouflage, if you have hunter orange, if you have hats, if you have trail cameras, anything that's got to do with fishing. So again, rods and reels and boats and trollers. Anything that's related to outdoors is going to be there. And it's people want to, I remember hearing about the SHOT Show and thinking, oh my God, it's got to be the coolest thing ever. And I'm not saying it's not, it is, but you can't buy anything. You can't walk home with anything. It's more for people to connect, companies to connect with other companies and businesses and gun stores to make deals with, people that sell products and all that kind of stuff.
Well, what I'm looking forward to? I want to check out the new line of handguns. So there's going to be a lot of new handguns out. And I'm also interested to check out the new Glock.
The Glock 6.
I thought it was a Glock V.
That was so last week,
that was
man.
That was so November.
That was so last week.
So
It's
the Glock 6. Okay, so tell me about the 6. What?
It comes after the V.
Okay.
no.
Right. I'll tell you how stupid I am when they said the Glock V. I'm like, they've already got a Glock 5. What's going on with this?
He's Roman numerals over there, right?
Yeah, no, they actually.
Well, they discontinued what? How many? 20 to 30 different models?
Everything except for like the 43 and the 43X, right?
Yep.
Everything except the small single stack, super thin, small, very concealable handguns. They said they were discontinuing everything. Then they came out with the V, and everyone hated them because the V was supposed to be so you can't put up a Glock switch and turn it into a machine gun and all that sort of nonsense.
Well, we don't really know because then the 6 Glock never confirmed that they weren't trying to allow the V to not be converted easily, right? So I'm not really. I would love to get the whole story about how this all came about, but the V came out and it got out there, like it got into people's hands. They might even be selling it now.
The news was leaked, I think, by Glock Store in Nashville.
Right.
And it was in late October, and they said in November 1st is when they're switching over and only selling Glock Vs. So you have a 17V and 19V,
So that hit the shelves, and then shortly after that, you've got somebody would design their own Glock switch that they put on there, and they went full auto with the Glock V, and everybody's like, "Oh, see, they were trying to do this, and they were trying to bend the knee to California."
Yeah,
and I don't really know, like, who knows why the V came out, but then like shortly thereafter that, the Glock 6 announcements came out, and the Glock 6, those are coming out on January 20th, I believe, on SHOT Show. Tuesday. Or at SHOT Show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so that's the Glock 6. And then a bunch of our friends and colleagues got to go out there. I know Robin Sandoval went out.
Was there.
And they were all under embargo, and they all got to get their hands on and shoot and do content.
Wow.
And actually get with the Glock 6. They didn't do that with the V. It was very weird. So, I don't know what kind of marketing juju that they're doing, or what the whole impetus was of the V and then the 6, or eventually I'd like to know what the story was, but we don't know. But there's the V, and now there's the 6.
Wow. Well, there's also a new Staccato that I want to check out. It looked really cool. I can't remember the name of it, the model, but I mean, there's so many cool handguns coming out now this year. I saw some reviews on them, and so if people want to check this stuff out, I mean, and the floor at the expo floor at SHOT Show is, what did they say, 16 miles long?
It's unbelievable.
If you walk every aisle?
Yeah, it's something. I mean, I've heard people say the stats. It's something crazy. Like, if you went to every booth and stayed there for 7 seconds a booth, you still wouldn't catch everything, because they have the main floor, they have a basement floor. I think they have 2 other floors.
Yeah.
There's the main floor, then there's the law enforcement floor, and then there's another section where they have stuff.
And then Caesars.
Across the hall, across the street, they have the Caesars Forum, which is, it's not as big, but it's still got a ton of stuff.
Wow.
Well, Charlie, you and I are going to have a blast. I don't know about these clowns.
Are you guys staying together?
Same hotel. Yeah.
So you're going to have a room all to yourself?
Connecting doors.
Of course.
You know what they say?
I don't know
What happens in Vegas?
Stays in Vegas.
Well, I snore, so I don't want to.
What's the first thing I was thinking of? It's all good.
So anyway, so that's it. January 20th through 23rd at the Venetian Expo Caesars Forum in Las Vegas. Get yourself set up to go to the SHOT Show. It's going to be great. Charlie and I are going to be out there. We're going to be interviewing people, and we're going to be doing interviews ourselves, talking about Second Amendment issues, and it's gonna be a lot of fun, as it always is, right?
It always is,
and we can always get in trouble. There's always
it's all day. Like, people, the tiring thing is when people say they want to go to SHOT, and they, you get there on whatever Monday or Tuesday when it kicks off, and then by Wednesday night you're just dragging tail.
Yeah,
like, you're on the go. You're walking 10 to 12 miles every day. You're indoors. You're getting the oxygen piped in all the time. I legit have had nightmares where I've been out and nightmares about me being at Vegas and getting lost and not being able to find my way out of a casino.
What's also coming up, and Charlie and I are going to it, is the Great American Outdoors Show. That's February, I think, was it 7th is when it is?
Yeah, it's like 9 or 10 days long.
9 days straight, and that's in Pennsylvania. And so those of you who are not, industry side, so SHOT Show, you have to be in the industry or media to really get in there. And again, you're not able to buy stuff, but shows like the Great American Outdoors Show, that's open to the general public. You can get in there.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think all you have to be is an NRA member.
Or pay the ticket or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not really sure.
Right. I think if you pay the ticket, you get an NRA membership. Yeah. So you got to be an NRA member. It's a lot of the same stuff. It's a lot of the same vendors, and it's 2 weeks after SHOT Show. But they're there for 9 days, which when you talk to the folks, it's a long time.
And you can buy stuff though.
Yeah, you can buy
stuff. So you go there and
go.
Yeah.
Well,
road trip.
I like to leave with something. Right?
Yeah.
Like a knife.
A knife.
So
whatever.
So John, if you want to put up John Petrolino's little mug there, and let Danny get a picture of this. So John has a website called The Square Reviews, and last year last year we went and worked it a little bit. In Massachusetts, you can lawfully have out the front knives now. So he went and talked to some people, and he came, dragged me back there, and he's like, listen, I've got a website, thesquarereviews.com. I can't have these, but Charlie's one of my writers. If you set him up with a couple of out the front knives, we can write a review on those. So that was pretty cool. So I got to drive home with a couple of out the front knives.
Well, you're not the only The Square Reviews contributor that we have in the house as well.
I think
Mr. Producer, Danny Wass Jr., has also been giving us content too. So thank you, Danny, for your contributions. He said you're welcome from the other room.
So the Great American Outdoor Shows, it's pretty cool. And it's, they have demonstrations with dogs and horses and motorboats and all sorts of stuff. So it's really cool.
Dogs and horses and
and horses and motorboats.
What's Anthony pointing at?
Put those two on.
He was waiting for his suggestion to come up on the screen.
No, he has Santa peeking over petrol.
Nice.
Look at him. Look.
Nice. He's sniffing him. Yeah, that's good.
Joe Biden.
He's the sniffing.
Oh, good Lord, help me.
Good Lord.
All right. Trying to get serious.
Johnny P's been talking a lot about Jersey. Now,
Jersey.
It's important that somebody in this country, a writer, is talking about Jersey. And you got the market cornered on this. You just did an article not too long ago. New Jersey man's guns were returned after a lawsuit filed over confiscation. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. And it's a very interesting, and it's complicated, but it's not complicated. What makes it complicated is the guy that got his guns confiscated, he got his guns confiscated because something dealing with his wife. It had nothing to do with him. So this is in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and his wife ended up in the hospital. It turns out it was pregnancy-related issues, but there was a language barrier. So English second language, not really communicating well. Anyhow, the people in the hospital ended up thinking that this woman was wrongly thought that she was in some sort of peril and involuntarily committed her to an institute. Yep. Okay? So the Fort Lee Police Department show up at this guy's house, and they're like, you need to give us your guns because your wife is been committed. And, he doesn't want to create problems, so he doesn't really know to assert all of his rights, 4th, 5th, 6th Amendment. Just remember that, people, 4, 5, 6, right? You're going to assert your rights. Ends up giving his firearms over, and now trying to fight to get his firearms back, she ends up coming out of the hospital. They figure out that it was kind of a misunderstanding, but now the prosecutor's office and the Fort Lee police in that area wanted him to get her medical records to show them that she's not a threat or an issue, which he's not a party to her medical records. That has nothing to do with it. So Second Amendment Foundation stepped up to the plate to help this guy out, and they sued Bergen County, the prosecutor, Fort Lee police. They went after everybody under the sun. And the lawsuit, it's the battle's not, the war isn't over, but there was a huge win in that the prosecutor's office sent over a letter saying, hey, we want to try to figure this out amicably. Let's try to settle this. And had the guy's firearms returned to him. So him and his attorney were able to go over there and get his firearms back. And what's unprecedented about this, and this is what some other people that, might be looking at this say, well, okay, he got his guns back. That's not that big of a deal. He got his guns back. He should have. There are people in New Jersey that have won lawsuits, court battles where jurisdictions and, police departments are being ordered, you shall give these guns back, and they still play games for years.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching the Loaded Mic on Rumble, YouTube, wherever you're watching us. Also checking us out on all our podcast apps. You can also find the Loaded Mic on the Spreely Network at Spreely.com. And my name is Dan Wass. And remember, the Second Amendment is not a privilege, it's your right.